about bringing awareness to veterans and what they can face and the struggles that they go through. So this is my grandpa. Growing up, my family would tell stories about him, about how he was a great guy, brave, generous, a true guy's guy, and a gentleman too. After getting older, I would then start to hear stories about his struggles with life after he came home from war. He would have night sweats and flashbacks, and back then sexual dysfunction wasn't very common, but now my grandmother says that she believes he struggled with it. He never became homeless or abused drugs or alcohol, but I've seen what life can become after war. And I think about the people that I know that have yet to enter back into civilian life and how I'm worried what they may struggle with. And this presentation is going to be about bringing awareness to what they can go through. They fight so hard to protect us and this country that the least that we could do is help them live a healthy, successful life once they go back to home and to the families that they've loved and that they've missed. Sexual dysfunction is something that not a lot of people like to talk about. Some doctors say that it's a more mental disorder, a disease of the mind. Others say that it's more of a physical issue. Again, most veterans and civilians don't want to admit to having this problem. Most men are taught to grow up and be a man, be a guy's guy. And from what I remember, my brothers, when they were growing up, nothing about erectile dysfunction was ever mentioned in what a man should be. Physical issues are probably the most common. These can include a brain trauma, a hearing loss, ringing or buzzing, a loss of memory, the speech impediments, an incapability to process language, and amputation. These physical issues can stem from explosives detonating close by, or even repeated rapid gunfire close in your ear. Loss of memory, speech impediments, and being unable to process language is a result of brain trauma, a brain being physically damaged. Such things as driving over an explosive in Afghanistan, the IEDs. An amputation is probably most likely the most recognizable effect of war. Being shot in a limb, hit with an explosive, or contracting an infection can cause an amputation. Although this is a physical effect, having a limb amputated can cause what's known as phantom limb. Phantom limb is when, after losing a limb, the brain tries to send signals to that limb and the existing nerve cells around the amputated area. This can result in a high amount of pain and discomfort for some say months, some say years, some it's just a little bit and they don't have a lot to deal with. Substance abuse is another issue with veterans. Because of a weakened mind, veterans are more apt to engage in a new onset of heavily weekly drinking and binge drinking. This may not start off as something intense, but one or two drinks can end up being more in the long run. This can also deal with drugs and drug-related problems. And because veterans a lot of the times need to be prescribed drugs for mental issues or pain that they have endured because of an injury to the body. They're also more likely to start smoking, or if they've given up smoking, they're more likely to relapse and it'll become an issue again. With multiple deployments and combat exposure, those veterans are at a greater risk of developing a substance problem just because they have been through more trauma than those that have gone through less. And there's a new Army initiative that they're working on limiting the duration of prescription opioids and pain relievers to 6 months, and those prescribed those drugs are being monitored by a pharmacist, and they're monitoring the soldiers' medications And also, if there are multiple prescriptions, then they will monitor that and try to limit the reality of something happening. Suicide is a big issue. In recent years, the suicide rate has gone up. Now, about 22 veterans commit suicide every day. Many veterans have reported to having suicidal thoughts. Some reported homicidal thoughts, and then some have reported self-harming thoughts. Though they may not be suicidal, they are harming themselves. And this honestly breaks my heart. They did not go to war and fight hard to keep people safe and alive just to come home and want to kill themselves or harm themselves because of what they have endured at war. One of the main causes of suicide is PTSD. Now, PTSD is a mental illness or disorder. It's post-traumatic stress disorder. It's a disorder that develops in some people when they've experienced a shocking, scary, or dangerous event. Some of the symptoms of PTSD are having poor memory or memory loss, getting flashback to the traumatic event, difficulty sleeping, waking up with night terrors, exaggerated startled responses, getting angry real fast, or being scared of something that normally you would have not been scared of, a loss of interest in any of the hobbies or things that you'd like to do before the traumatic event, feeling emotionally numb to the people in your life and the music or movies or things that you used to love. Irritability is another symptom of it, and then isolation. You want to isolate yourself and you just don't want to be in contact with any other human. Homelessness is another big issue. Communities across America have reported to having almost 50,000 homeless veterans, which is about 8.6% of the total amount of homeless people in our population. And most commonly in history, veterans who were over 50 were known to be homeless. Although recent studies have shown that this will change and younger veterans will start to face homelessness. And as a result, they will struggle with more substance abuse and alcohol abuse than the over 55s. Now, I think of my grandfather and I remember the happy times, and I'm thankful for the time that we've had and that I was born after his struggles were long gone. No one can tell that he had struggled. Everyone that I know could not see it, but then I think about the people who don't think that there's a better tomorrow, that they're struggling today and they won't see anything bright in the future. They can't because of the mental disorder or of mentally getting over losing a limb. I chose this topic because I'm very sensitive to the sacrifice that these veterans have made. And I'm going to school, getting an education, I have a job, I live on my own, like I'm able to do these things and have my peace of mind because they're out there fighting to keep me safe. I just don't understand how we can't be sensitive to that issue. I think about my friends and my family members who are still enlisted and they still have to come home, and I know that they're very well trained and that they know what they're doing in the battlefield. They know in combat what to do. You know, the United States military trains them very well, but nobody trains them for what happens after they get home. And I'm more worried about when they get home than what they face out there against terrorists. And
more than 300,000 veterans from Iraq and Afghanistan are diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, and 2/3 of those veterans are not receiving treatment. soldiers at war used to be able to identify combat zone and home. Now, everything is a combat zone.